The school I went to, I'm not sure I was listened to, perhaps. And I did struggle with a lot of things, and I don't think people believe that I was really trying sometimes. I mean, obviously sometimes I didn't try, so I just gave up, but I did turn over lots of new leaves. Memories of growing up here and Dad doing that garden. Dad died in 1982 on the day that I was interviewed for a job in a secondary school just down the road. Dad making me believe that I could do anything I chose to do, and there ought to be more dads like that. The home backing and the home values are absolutely essential.
On the education front, Mary Binn's hard line seemed to be paying off. After just 14 months, the school escaped special measures. But things weren't going so well with the parents. One afternoon, they finally reached a head.
Since Mary had come, we'd had a handful of parents who had been grumbling and making big major issues about really small things. And it were the same parents all the time.
They'd just gone too far, just ready for erupting, and that's exactly what happened. Everybody was hostile.
A family was saying that their child had meningitis.
And the letter went out, and a lot of parents day before had rang up to see who it were. They wanted to know who it were, whose class you were in, and of course you can't give that information out because it's totally confidential.
Parents were in yard. They knew that there were meningitis in school. Nobody actually knew a lot about meningitis at that time, only that you could die with it, and you could also carry it, and you could also give it to somebody else.
And I contacted the doctor who is in charge of that sort of thing for advice, and she told me, and it's difficult with doctor-parent relationships and doctor-patient relationships, she told me that the child had not got meningitis, and there was certainly no need for me to do all the things that the community were expecting me to do.
We all just marched in.
About 30 parents came into school up the corridor unannounced.
We marched down there mob-handed, and we must have looked terrifying.
The 30 parents got to 40 parents, and they moved through the school in a big gang, and they were basically coming for me.
Well, a couple of them were stood outside each entrance with their own flyers, what they'd had done. There's a meeting inside Mansell School at this time for parents only, and you know.
Everybody shouting.
We tried to explain that there was nothing to communicate.
Very tense, very hostile.
So it were a bit daunting really, a bit frightening.
And because I'd got this information from a doctor, I felt unable to say, I know the child hasn't on good authority. And so I was really between a rock and a hard place. I couldn't say anything.
We were prepared to stop there all day if necessary. We were prepared for police to come, for newspapers to come, because our exact thoughts were, if they want to do that, then we will get somewhere.
They said that they would be back tomorrow. This was the end of one afternoon.
The next morning, having consulted the council's public relations officer, Mary went back into school to face the parents again.
The press officer told me later that he was on his way into work and something just told him to turn round and come to the school. And he actually arrived in the middle of it all and walked into this crowd and quelled them and brought out the two ringleaders for further discussions in my office.
And, you know, then Mary were able to give a response back, well, this is why these things are.
We got a meeting with one of the fellas off school parents committee, Mrs Binns, and somebody from education. They come down the next morning and spoke to us. That opened gates for talking.
You know, they said a lot of things, parents said a lot of things what they weren't happy with, and it was just probably things what's built up, things what needed to be said, really.
And from that morning, we formed Friends of Mansell, myself, Danella, and a few others. We formed Friends of Mansell. And we turn round and says, we will do all we can to help the school, providing the school is straight with us.
Should do when you've come out.
As a parent governor, Claire had found herself caught in the crossfire. In the aftermath of the meeting, a new role began to emerge.
Well, it kind of made me think, you know, these people need to talk to somebody. They need to go somewhere with these issues. They weren't going to go to staff then because they'd not done it. It's not what you did. They weren't going to go to Mary. Chicken and taters. And then she'd said to me about having these surgeries a couple of mornings a week.
As soon as I got funding from SRB5, and somebody said to me, you know, if we gave you this money, what would you do with it? And I said, I'd ask Claire to give up her cleaning job and come and work for me. And she was wonderful because she was one of them. She spoke their language. I wouldn't have got a foot through the door on some of these occasions.
You know, and I used to come away with lists as long as my arms. But, you know, 6 months in and we'd just be talking about, and it were always, well, I'm not happy about this and I don't want that and I'm sick of this, and it were always that. But, you know, like within 6 months, it were, well, what can we do? How can we get these books? What can we do for them in summer? And, you know, they were totally different because they were allowed to come in and have an opinion.
So then we decided we would do raffles. We went begging off shops. We went begging off other people. And I don't know if you've seen it up at Mansell, the parents' room. Well, we did that. We decorated it ourselves. We had the full backing. If we wanted to go in her office, we went in her office, which was before never allowed. And then every Monday morning, we'd have a tea morning. Parents could come up, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea. Mrs Binns would come to it. And it was just different things that we got involved with. Things that would have never took off prior to this.
We're all going on a bear hunt.
Mary also used the funding she had secured to change Anne Stafford's job. She had run the nursery for many years, but moved to establish family learning, bringing many more parents into the school.
I can understand how sometimes they do feel very threatened about coming in, and this is why when they do come in to do courses, for some people they're not ready at that particular point, and it may take a year, it may take longer for them to feel that they can walk through that door and into that building. It's always much easier for parents to drop the children off and attend a course in school than it is to walk down the road and go to a college, because they're coming in with people that they know, maybe with friends, or they're coming into a familiar building.
Today, the family learning that Mary Binns started continues. The school runs courses on everything from crafts and nail art to supporting children with their English and maths.
We went to school, you weren't allowed in. It was like fortress door, wave goodbye at the door and the parents go home and you walk in, and it makes the children feel better that we can come in the nights. You know, we'll come and pick them up to see the teacher at night, and we'll come in, and they feel better about going because they know it's not just the child that has to be in here. The parent, they are allowed in, and it's more. They go, while you're in, we can show you what we're doing in school. We'll get the books out.
Parents need reassurance as well, don't they?
It's not just the kids, it's parents. It's a very hard thing taking your child to school, especially at first. You know, it's your little thing, and it's so hard, and you want to know everything. I miss them so much when they're at school. I want to know whether they've sneezed or whatever. And it's so nice when you can come in and our eldest, she'll get her work out, she'll say, I've done this, you know.
You've got 1, 2, 3, who's got number 4?
Cards in a week, if that. So
The regular parents' meetings organised by Andrew Machel, the new head at Mansell, are more sedate than in Mary's day.
Right, one of the things, I obviously have these meetings on a regular basis, but one of the things I wanted to do was talking about the behaviour policy. I'm sure the things... Communities that have had a very negative view of the agencies that are there to support them, suddenly it's oh right, actually they're listening to us. Actually, he's making some sense. I suppose the success of that sometimes is the fact that we have very few parents now attending it, because those issues aren't there.
yeah.
All the time.
I think because a lot of what Mary did was behind closed doors. She was good at seeing in other people what nobody else could see. But she set foundations for how it is now. I think she's implemented a lot of things. What's left other people ready to build on. They'll know things, do other things. But before you do that, you know, it's before you build your house, you've got to have your foundations, haven't you, before you put your fancy windows in.
On the other side of the city, just beside the estate where she grew up, Mary Binns is now building relationships with a new set of parents at Norfolk Primary.
She was a very, very strong head, but she had to be in order to get the school from where it was to where it is now.
You know, I weren't working when Mary... I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Mary, so I respect that, and I shan't ever forget that.
It's the way you stand firm, and I think I've probably got better at that with age, and I did learn a lot that day.
To me, Mrs Binns were strutting about in a suit and that's it.
You had to get actually inside their heads, inside that building, to realise just what was what.
No matter what you said to her, she just, like that.
When I left, I think it was one of the most painful things I've ever done.
A very nice, friendly lady who was just like us. I've heard her swear. I've heard her the and how.
Never take the path of least resistance. And I've always done that. If I had any sense, I'd be in this village school in Derbyshire.
Many of the families from Mary's day have left too. Lollipop lady Andrea Mallender is trying to ensure the survival of their parents' group, Friends of Mansell.
We really need more parent support, but we just can't get it at the moment. It's voluntary, you see, you don't get paid. So a lot of people don't realise commitment. Like we sent 380 letters out, we had 2 responses.